Hello, everyone. Lefteris, shall we start?
Yes, thank you very much, George. Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar organized by the Hellenic Development Bank as part of its ongoing commitment to fostering innovation through the InnoAgora platform. As we all know, InnoAgora platform serves as a hub of collaboration and knowledge sharing, helping startups and innovative companies thrive by providing non-financial support in areas critical to their success. Today's webinar is a part of that initiative, focusing on the intersection of design, technology, and businesses. Our theme today, as you see, is bringing visions to reality, one pixel at a time, the importance of UI/UX for building impactful products, emphasizes the growing importance of user interface and user experience design in the development of successful user-centered products. To guide us through this topic, we have the privilege of hosting two distinguished professionals from Mantis Beyond Innovation, Mr. Iraklis Voyagiou, UX and Creative Lead, and joining him by Angelos Vasiliou, Tech Lead at Mantis BI, who will explore the technological side of the equation, how innovation in tech works hand in hand with design to bring these digital visions to life. At the Hellenic Development Bank, we believe that supporting businesses goes beyond financing. Through initiatives like InnoAgora, we offer valuable non-financial tools and insights, helping entrepreneurs turn their ideas into thriving enterprises. And today's sessions is just one example of the knowledge sharing that fuels innovation project and progress. Before we begin, I would like to let everyone know that today's webinar will be recorded and made available for future references. If you have any questions during the presentations, you are free to write them in the chat, and we will be addressing as many questions as possible during the Q&A session at the end. Thank you all for having with us today, and we hope you find this webinar both informative and inspiring. So, Mr. Vasiliou and Mr. Voyagiou, the floor is yours. You may begin.
Thank you, Lefteris, for your introduction, first of all. Thank you, everybody, for having us. As it was already discussed, the topic today is UIUX and how that enables products and how it takes us from just having something to bring users into it. I'm Angelos. I'm tech lead at Mantis Beyond Innovation, and with me here today, I have Iraklis, my colleague, UX and creative lead. We aspire to transform complex visions into intuitive, user-centric products that truly make a difference in today's digital world. From our experience, we'll be doing the past few years, we've seen that a small impact in how a user interacts with a platform or a digital product or even a marketing campaign can truly change conversion rates and everything about a business and its processes. Today, we'll be delving into why UI/UX matters so much, not just the aesthetics of it, but as a key driver of a business success. We'll cover the impact of UI/UX has on users and companies, clarify what is user interfaces, so UI, and what is user experience, so UX, and so how either new professionals into this or seasoned ones can combine great UI/UX and strategic marketing to elevate a product into sort of new heights. We want this to be as interactive as possible. So we're not going to keep it as dense with a lot of topics. We want you to keep notes if you want, and then come in the end together and ask any possible questions, and we'll be happy to address. So who we are. I'm Angelos. I have an engineering and business background myself. I have sort of a software development into data science, into creating digital solutions for a lot of different things in the past few years. I love everything from concept ideation of a product into actually seeing it being in the market. And Mantis, we're going to say some words just now, is an innovation management firm. I had the opportunity to lead teams that build data-driven solutions that address technical challenges But always my passion is interacting with users and helping them understand our visions behind the engineering of it. So at Mantis, we specialize in driving growth and creativity through innovation management and open innovation platforms and processes. Our core mission is to empower businesses by providing them with the tools they need to foster innovation, collaborate openly, and bring groundbreaking ideas to market. I've said this in past talks before. I breathe innovation personally. I think everybody in my team does that too. Our CEO, Christos Nikoloudis, also truly believes that. We believe that innovation cannot really happen in isolation ever. It has to be people coming together and creating new experiences. So to stay ahead in today's fast-moving landscape of that, businesses must always be able to engage with the ecosystem of partners, startups, customers, and employees. And that's exactly where we come in as enablers of all that ecosystem. Our platforms and our processes, our events, whatever we try to organize from concept to finalization has the key idea to enable the ecosystem of startups and innovation to foster. Our approach is to basically get an R&D process of any sort of company, big corporation or educational institutions, anybody really on the space, and leverage our process and our platforms. And you're going to see a lot of wireframes later on in the presentation on how we do that to co-create solutions with external partners or startups that come in to help build solutions for these, let's say, corporations that are struggling with either business process or creating a new product. We focus on building scalable and secure intuitive solutions that cater to a wide range of industries. We breathe startups, that's true, but we also are firm believers of the green ecosystem and everything that surrounds that. Personally, to just take a small hint of what's coming, I truly believe that when you take a UI/UX as a process and you combine it with marketing and then you understand your data behind it, your user is going to have a better time because you interact better with him, and you're going to understand why and how, and we're going to see how we're going to measure that in the next few slides to make sure that we evolved based on user design and user center. Iraklis, the word to you.
Thank you, Angelos, for the amazing introduction, and thank you to Inagora for having us today. My name is Iraklis Boyazou. I'm the UX and creative lead over at Mantis Beyond Innovation. So before we start by talking about the UI/UX and it's important to building impactful products for users and businesses, I'm going to tell you a few things about me. So I started my journey as a computer scientist. That was my major in college. Because I loved playing video games. So I thought to myself, why don't I just start developing them? When I went into college, then I started growing this love for the users, how users interact with the products. And when we started creating group projects, I would always focus on developing the front end because I always liked users interacting with my product or my team's product. And then that led me into creating products for businesses and customers, developing solutions to fulfill the needs, whether that would be portfolios or booking systems, anything that would need to solve a business problem. And fast forward a year ago, September 2023, I joined Mantis Beyond Innovation. Ever since then, we've been creating digital products. We've been looking how people interact with them and basically creating ideal paths from when the users first find out about us and our programs, like Angelos mentioned, into enrolling in them and taking part in them. Now, on today's topic, we're going to discuss, as we said, about the importance of UI/UX. We're going to start with the basics, the difference between those two, why are they important for users and companies, and also how can you use that, can you leverage those tools with digital marketing into create a complete experience for the users. And then we're going to finish off with a few tips and a few tips to know in order for you to become a better UI UX designer, or if you're starting out right now, give you a few first steps into getting into this great world. So let's begin with the difference between UI and UX. Although you see those terms together all the time, it's very important to distinguish the differences between them. They may sound fancy for many people. If you tell people you do UI UX, they're looking at you wondering what are you talking about. But in reality, what it is combining design with the experience on digital products. So to put it in simpler terms, UI would be the design of a digital product of a website, what people see, whether that would be the visuals, the typography on a platform, the colors, the way the buttons look. That would be the UI, is what the people see. Whereas UX, on the other hand, is a holistic experience where it includes the entire user journey. So from when the user lands on your website or your platform to registering for your, let's say, newsletter or purchasing the program or your product, that would constitute into the UX part of the design. Although different, it's important here to understand that you can't have one or the other in a successful product. That's why you see them together all the time. So to put it more simply, as I said, UI mostly focuses on how things look, like the colors, the buttons, the typography, and it basically makes things look pretty to the user. That you want to have a professional and clean look on your website. So you're going to look into the UI aspect of it, the gradients, the colors, everything that the user will look at it and be like, oh, this is nice. And on the other hand, you have the UX, which focuses on how things work and how that makes users feel. It structures the entire user journey from the time the user hears about your product through the entire interaction, how they reflect on it, and the whole experience afterwards. So the focus here is to go from attracting a customer to converting that into a lead, and at the end as a potential customer, because leads are only part of success. Ideally you would want to create those leads into customers in the way your business does. If it's products, that would be purchasing a product. If it's a product, if it's a software product, maybe a lead would be to sign up for a free trial and then afterwards purchasing a year filled of a year's monthly fee, a year's fee basically. So although they're two different words, it's important to see them together. So a very good example here is having a great looking car. Let's say a Rolls-Royce. They're amazing. Everyone loves their design. You look at the Rolls-Royce, you look at the color, the trim, the color, the overall shape. It's wonderful. But then you go in and drive it, and it doesn't drive that great. That means you're having a bad experience with a car. And that's similar to having a bad user experience. Imagine landing into a website that it's great at first glance, but then trying to get into the endpoint, which would be, let's say, registering for a newsletter, it's very hard. So then what happens? The user may end up not registering for your newsletter, and you end up missing that opportunity altogether. So although different, in order to create a complete product, you need to focus on both things at the same time. Firstly, you start with a UX, which is gathering data. There's a lot of data. Part of the UI UX is not good, and you hear about designing and creating beautiful websites and apps, but there is a lot of things going on in the back end, which is getting data in order to design things. You can't just go open up a Canva and just paint stuff on the internet. You need to make sure you understand your user. You need to make sure you know the pains, what they need, to create personas for people that are going to be, who's going to use the app. Is it going to be X and Y who have K and Z type of needs? So you need to map those needs from the users, get feedback from them, and then create what is called a first mockup or a low fidelity mockup of your app, which is basically just a rough design of what the experience of the user would be. And then after all those sorts of feedbacks, and trust me, there's going to be many. If you want to have a great app and that people are going to love using, and it's going to create revenue for you and your business, you're going to have to do a lot of back and forth to make sure that you understand the user to 100%, and make sure that when they land on your website, you're gonna create conversions. But after you create all that work, after you create all the data, do the prototyping for your app or your product, then that's the beauty of it. You start designing, bringing your imagination to life. All this just comes together, designing high fidelity mockups with great tools like Figma, for example, incorporating branding elements to it, like the colors, the fonts, the icons, and bringing your vision to life. Now, UX basically puts users first, but it's important to know the value of it as a business, because those two are interconnected. If you have a satisfied user, most likely you're gonna create, that's gonna have impacts on your profits, for example. If a user can go from point A to point S to point Z, that means that you basically are doing something right, and that's gonna translate into your metrics or how you measure conversion. So for the user, a well-designed UX captures user attention right from the beginning. What's called the above the fold. It's a topic we're gonna discuss later. And by having clear call to actions, it's easier for the user to turn a user into a lead. So if they land into a landing page, for example, and they have a great opening, a great heading, and a form which is very clear at what the form does, they're very likely to sign up for that form and then get the data that you need from them. This is an example that we used on a previous project, a previous program that we had, where we had to we had job openings, and we needed professionals to submit their data, CVs, and apply for the job. And what we did was create a landing page for the users with the most important aspects of the job position, which is which company they are going to apply to, how many job openings they have, and what the role is. And we had a very simple form where people could just get their data and then await a response from the company. But that's only part of it, because that's an example of a website where people just get in, submit a form, and then leave. Whereas that's not the only case. You could have products where you want people to interact with it. For example, Instagram that we mentioned earlier. It's not an app where you just download, upload a photo, and just delete. Apps like Instagram and other social media apps are designed to keep people inside the app. And in order to do that, you need to make it interactive. That's why you have all those sort of things that they add all the time to keep people inside the app and have them engage in the app, like posting stories or calling their friends on their messaging app. That's a great thing to have, and it increases dramatically the user experience. And by doing so, people trust your app. They are more inclined to use it and share it with their friends. And that brings me to the next topic, which is the importance of UX for businesses, because at the end of the day, it's business. So if people are happy, they're going to use your product, and that's going to immediately translate into higher conversions. So for example, the thing here is that UX is it's not just a nice to have. It's actually a necessity if you want to step ahead of the competition and understand your user and your clientele better. Because if you understand the value, you know what to aim for, and basically cutting costs here and there, creating a better experience for the user. And as I said earlier, if people are happy to use a product, they trust it, they're more inclined to share it with other people. And that increases the engagement, that increases the audience that you're going to have in your product. And it's basically like an organic growth. You don't need to pay for marketing if everyone's that you see that we saw that on COVID with many apps that got boosted because everyone loved using them. They were amazing. They were very simple to use. And without any marketing, just organic growth. Everyone shared with their friends, and you had products exponentially growing in a few days. And a great example here of UX is actually in one of the programs that we had. As we mentioned earlier, we have a software called IMS, which we license. And one great example that we noticed is on one of our clients, CIT Raw Materials, which they run a program through our software. There was a huge increase in the submissions by changing the way the landing page looked to the users. So as you can see here, we have the same landing page, which serves the same purpose, introducing users to the program, having them sign up or log in. And we thought, let's change the way it looks, update it, have it more prominent. So like bolder headings, larger images, visuals, clear call to action buttons, log in and sign up. And we saw an over 360%. Actually, I think Angelos, it was 365% increase in conversion. So we went from 28 submissions to 130 final submissions, which doesn't seem like a lot, but we're talking about startups registering in order to compete for up to 500,000 euros, which is actually very hard to get. Even 28 submissions is hard to get. Imagine getting exploding from going from 28 to 130. So that's one example of how UX has impacted the results of a campaign. Now I'm gonna pass it to Angelos, because UX, as I said earlier, UI and UX are vital for business success, but you need to figure out a way to get people onto your website, because you can have a great platform, but without the marketing, it's pointless if you can't have a funnel for people to go to your app.
Right. Thank you, Iraklis. Yeah, that's a crucial part. For any kind of product, no matter what it is, it can be a wallet, it can be a phone, it can be anything really, even a cert. How you're going to promote it to the user that's going to actually purchase or use it is sometimes even more important for many people than actually the product they're actually buying. And that happens usually all the time. And here I'm an engineer, so I'm not going to say, hey, don't worry about functionality. What I'm going to say is that users sometimes join a funnel and they're not 100% sure why or how functional the product is going to be in the end. Let's talk about the user journey and how we're going to convert a user, right? Marketing and UX design have to be aligned all the time. They have to be closely designed in order to take a user from the first time he or she interacts with the platform or the product or even a social media post, whatever is the first time you basically get him to read what you want him to read, and then create a flow, basically condensed steps that lead him without manipulating him, because you don't want to feel the user that he has no customizability whatsoever to what you eventually want him to do. And although that sounds pretty straightforward, it's not as straightforward as it is. For example, this is three different steps that a user takes in a European project we're running, which is regarding to the green alternative source of energy. And we want the users to sign up, obviously, in our platform in order to see a condensed application form, and then they actually need to interact with something. But we realize that, hey, if you just throw a link to some people, that's not really how it works. So we created basically an intermediate, which is a landing page that basically explains to the user what he or she is basically reading without putting all this context in the social media post, because that would basically be too much for the user to read, right? imagine a scenario that you're seeing a compelling ad for a new app and you click on it, but when you get into the landing page or this intermediate product we're talking about, it's difficult to navigate, or the value is not 100% clear, or it's very, very highly that the user eventually is going to probably click X. Science is basically showing that we do not spend more than 5 to 6 seconds losing interest in something we don't really know, right? So that's where UX comes in marketing. It's basically have to capture the user, and then it has 5 to 7 seconds to lure the user to interact with buttons. That's all it is. Now moving to the next slide, we're going to see how important marketing is to highlight product features, right? And that is about showing potential customers why your product is worth the time. So that's a different marketing strategy than just leading the user to interact with a couple of CTA buttons or a campaign. It's about making the user to understand what he or she is going to get without, again, making too content or too tough for him to understand and read. UX makes sure the features you highlight deliver real value, right? So it's basically what we say here, and a great example I usually try to have myself bench against is that, again, everybody wants to be Steve Jobs or idolize like Steve Jobs, but there's a great marketing campaign in Apple when they rehired Steve Jobs in 2000s that basically tries to explain to the user how we're going to get a new difference on these Apple designs. And after that phase, we got iPhones and MacBooks and podcasts and all that kind of stuff. Well, the marketing campaign they designed, its UX was basically to showcase the user experience that brilliance comes in difference. That's nothing to do with, I don't know, iPhones, MacBooks, great screens or computer products, but Apple in that particular phase in early 2000s wanted to say that, hey, we are the misfits here, and the features that you're going to get with us is what bright minds, who are called misfits by society, sort of imagine. So in my opinion, that's what a great marketing can do for a product. You can take an iPhone and basically explain to the user not only what it does, but also what it represents. Now, a very, very important part of that is consistency, okay? Every marketing campaign, every marketing feature campaign, any product that you will build, it's about needs people may have, right? So we basically have to think about, empathize about the end user, and then we have to say to yourself, why or why not he or she is going to use that product in the end. And then we have to sort of create the user flow. So for us to create it properly, we have to basically make the user trust us. We're taking him to a trip with us. It's going to be for 10, 15, 20 seconds, or it might be for a lifetime if we're talking about a lifetime value customer that is going to interact with our bank. And he or she has to understand that in these 10 seconds, we're trustworthy. Because if he understands that in 10 seconds, then we have to lose his trust, which comes with engineering and efficiency and all that kind of stuff that we don't really worry about UIUX. But the first 10 seconds, the first impressions with a product is what builds the trust. So that first interaction has to be consistent. Trust is built around, I don't know, same visuals, same colors, same brand books, clean UI interfaces that make the user understand that, hey, you're going to be valued here because we put effort on understanding you, right? So by ensuring consistency between marketing, messaging, and the actual product experience, we avoid creating unrealistic expectations and leading the user to understand that, hey, with me, you are going to get the sort of best experience that there is, not because I am a cocky business that thinks that they understand you, but because I actually try to understand you. That's a different sort of strategy coming close. And the only UI UX can do that. There's no other marketing tool out there to help you interact with users and help you come close to them. Moving forward, besides how we're going to market that, which is a crucial step, right? It's a very important step about understanding users and products and building UI UX around is understanding, hey, okay, sure, I can market something, or I can create something, or I have the engineering team ready, or I have the data science team ready, but who I'm gonna show that for, how I'm gonna attract new users. So in this particular session, we're gonna talk about attracting consumers or customers or users, depending on if you're actually going to build revenue on them or not. That's a difference between the three terms in the digital era that we're living. Competition is very fierce. There's a lot of tools out there that can basically compete with us. So the secret is providing an exceptional experience that draws a user to first of all land on us and then engage with us. There's two different scenarios. Now, as we can see in the screens, we're seeing Spotify. I think it's I don't know. They do that 100% spot on, better than anybody else in the world. Customization. Every user that lands and stays with a product, that's attracted to a product, no matter what the product is, needs to feel that it is created for him or her. And that's 100% going to be a need for people all the time. It wasn't 50, 60 years ago. I don't know why. Maybe people were not expecting so much services from other people. But now that we've seen how good and valued we can feel around a product, we want to make sure that this product is designed for us, right? So personalization is key on attracting and keeping customers. It's about users feeling seen and valued. Amazon does it very well. Personalized recommendations. They use a lot of AI and large language frameworks, LLMs for that. They basically go and understand their user through data sometimes, but that's another story, and then build UI features like chatbots or recommendation pop-ups, or even new features. Spotify, for example, has every year and shows to you your most used playlist, and anybody in social media have seen that when it comes down to close of the year, every person alive in my newsfeed posts their Spotify playlist, because they manage to basically put the benchmark on them. Do you want to showcase your playlist to other people for the whole year? You're going to do it with my feature. So now that's the baseline. A second way to attract is by creating seamless omnichannel experience, and that's way tougher than it sounds. It's about making people interact with brands across multiple platforms. So that can be interface on phones, it can be interface on laptops, larger screens, and especially UI UX designer or a marketing graphic designer has to always have 3 or 6 or 10 or 15 different sort of possible areas that his user can come from. Depends on the product sometimes. But you're going to design something different on a phone or an iPad. And obviously, the touchscreen on a Tesla, which is a screen that looks like an iPad, does not have the same user interface or same user experience that, I don't know, a touch on a Toyota has, that it's basically for another user, right? So again, Spotify does that very, very well. Whether you start listening to a song on your desktop and continue to your phone, the experience remains seamless. I can start something from an application to a song on my phone, and then if I want to go for a run, I can pause and restart, and it remembers me. I feel like it's my product, although it's literally a feature built for millions and millions of people. That's very, very key on attracting people. Another way is engaging visual storytelling. Humans are wired to respond in stories. That's been forever, I think. Books are there, we're evolving in that, but we always want to have a story to tell or a story to hear. That's the two parts. So videos, interactive graphics, and illustration help make experiences more memorable and engaging. UI designers are now, I call Iraklis in my team Picasso sometimes, because I think they're the new painters, 100%. User interfaces are a way to tell stories to people. And the better the graphic interface is, the better we show something to someone, the better story we can possibly tell. Sometimes not even words matter too much. Sometimes even just a visual can be more interactive than 2 paragraphs that have a lot of great context, but the user will not actually be engaged enough to read. An example is like how Nike uses compelling imagery and videos to tell stories about athletes. Their whole brand is based around athletes, although if you think about it, if you really, really think about it, their end user is not that often athletes. They're just normal people who like to run or go to the gym or play basketball, right? But they still put the athlete on the center to make you understand what it does and how you do. Lastly, mobile optimization. Panagiotis, we have 100% that question covered in about 3 slides, so you're going to be very happy about it. So moving to the next slide, mobile optimization. We talk about different channels and how people interact with iPads or thing, but unfortunately or fortunately, in my opinion, unfortunately, I don't really like spending too much time on my phone, but that's the truth. That's the reality. We spend a lot of time in this screen, in this small screen. We probably spend 20 to 30% of our day times, unless we have found a hack. And if you have, please tell me, because I need it. Everybody needs it in my generation. But yeah, jokes aside, mobile browsing is on the rise and will always be, because it's very fast, it's agile, it helps us understand better, and we need to optimize our products for it. It's not longer an option. But yeah, there's still better functionalities on web sometimes, especially when it's for longer processes. But if a user can choose a lower effectivity curve, so a product being not 100% functional but 95, but being on a phone, he will always do that. So we need to adapt on this as UI UX designers and marketeers. We need to understand that users prefer sometimes to see less, to interact with less, to not have functionality on its merits than having a laptop or building a screen or doing it with any other way. Imagine trying to access a website on your phone only to find that the buttons are too small because they're designed for a different interface. That's a very basic thing, but it usually happens in platforms that are outdated, or the text is hard to understand, or maybe now that it's not color blinded for many people. Poor mobile optimization can lead to frustration, and ultimately, that's another fact that usually happens, especially for mobile apps. There is a high chance that the mobile app is developed greatly, but they call this the death curve of the mobile apps. If you launch a mobile app in the App Store and the first user who comes in for the first 5 minutes finds a bug or an issue, he'll drop it and never download it. And that's why when you're a junior developer and you're starting up, the more senior people say, hey, do not start with mobile apps because they're pain. And that's why they're pain, because people do not give as much time on trusting a mobile app like a web. Back to you, Iraklis.
Thank you, Angelos. It's actually very interesting because now we are in a phase where we don't, sometimes it's hard to know what to design first. So when you start designing stuff, which is basically creating a mock-up for your product, you think to yourself, okay, is this desktop first or mobile first? And sometimes you need to find out. It's a few things you need to keep in mind. It's not only how most people interact with your website, because let's say you on your phone, you like viewing clothes on a website, but you're more likely to purchase those clothes when you visit that website on a browser on your laptop. So it's not only creating, it's a few things to keep in mind when creating experiences for both platforms, but it's very important to have a seamless experience across all, as Angelos mentioned, for example, with Spotify, where they have the same design. And I love what they do, as you said earlier, with how you go from listening to music on your laptop and then putting your AirPods on and leaving the house, and it continues playing music on your phone. That's actually brilliant. Now, I wanna let's get a bit more technical, right? We got a great question in the chat that I'm gonna cover in the next slides. But how do we increase attraction through digital marketing and structured user experience? The first thing that people get when they visit a website is something called above the fold. Above the fold actually comes from newspapers when they used to sell them on the kiosks. What basically is when you went to buy a newspaper, they were folded. So in order to get your attention, the headline and the image that was above that fold was what would catch your eye and make you purchase the newspaper. And that term was later used on internet. So above the fold is basically what the user sees when they first land on your website, on your app, on your platform. It's one of the terms you can find people usually call it is hero section. For example, that's a term we use at Mantis. You're gonna find the term with your team anyways, but those terms are interconnected. But the important thing here is to make sure that the above the fold catches your eye. As Angelo said, people will get on an app, and after 5-6 seconds, if they don't find what they need, they just leave, which is basically what it's called the bounce rate. So you need to make sure that the first experience people have with an app is great, and that comes with many factors. The first one, with no particular order whatsoever, because all of these are important into creating a great user experience and user design, would be having high quality images and visuals. Now, I'm an advocate of that myself. I love visuals more than I love big chunks of paragraphs explaining stuff, because I believe, and it's a cliche thing to say, but I firmly believe that an image is worth 1,000 words. And if you can have appealing images that transmit a story to the user, like how Nike does that with their athletes, that's a million times better than having an explanatory paragraph of why you should buy this Nike shoe because it has amazing technology, which I'm sure it does. But if I have an athlete wearing it, that speaks more than words to me. It's not only images though. There's always a few new trends coming up. That would be, for example, visuals, 3D visuals that you see people use, graphics, vectors. You don't necessarily need to be able to design them yourself, because this misconception that UI UX designers are graphic designers, it's not really the case. So you're not expected to know how to do 3D art, for example. But if you have the team or if you have the capacity, it's something you should be using in your designs or when creating digital products. Another thing to keep in mind is SEO, which stands for search engine optimization, which is basically a way to trick algorithms on like websites like Google search to make your website rank higher. So the better the SEO is, the higher it's going to rank on the Google indexes, and the easier it is for people. Basically, it's not a law, it's not a rule, but most of the time, a good SEO translates to good content, which means people will be able to understand your product. So if I have a great heading, which is gonna get my attention, this product is for you because this and that, I'm very inclined to buying it. And then you come to the end, which is the call to action, which is what's gonna generate your lead. If you don't have any call to actions on your website, that's it. No one's gonna buy your product. No one's gonna register in your business. You're not gonna get profit from it. You're not gonna get. No one's gonna go to the footer, call your number, and then make a purchase via the phone. No one does that anymore, unless, I don't know, you're old school. But in most cases, you want to make sure when you land on a page and you read what you need, because most of the times you're not 100% sure what you need after a marketing campaign, for example. And after you're satisfied with what you see and you like the product, you click on the call to action button, which ideally would be above the fold, and get into that product. Now, how do we measure the success of an app? Nothing tells me that I have designed perfect app, the perfect user journey. I have collected all the data I need, all the user research. I have created and I have designed a really beautiful looking website. Nothing tells me that this is 100% correct. That's why you need to be constantly testing. And the thing with UX is that it doesn't stop when you design something. You could have designed an app, and after a month or two or a year, for example, later, you need to revisit that app and start viewing other cases, other pain points that may come up. And one of the key factors you need to consider in order to increase traction is A/B testing, which is a method of testing your product across different means. So let's say, on example here, the designer has decided to use two different call to action buttons on a website, one saying add to cart and one saying buy more. And by doing so, they can then push those versions of the website to different people, and they can see which versions of the website perform better. And you can get that data and basically publish that to a user chunk of users. And that's a great way to optimize your designs, your user experience, the user journey you're creating. It's a great tool to have. Some great tools you can use. I think you had Google Optimize, but the thing with Google is they love discontinuing apps, and that's one of those apps they discontinued last year. But you have VWO, for example, for that. You have Optimizely, which are tools you can put on your website and or your platform and test it with users. That would be alongside the marketing team. Most of the times you would be working together. Also, there are other apps you can use if you're using WordPress, because most people use WordPress to create websites, for example. There are many plugins that allow you to do A/B testing. And then you need to focus on data. There's a lot of data from what platforms, but you need to make sure you know how to get that data. For example, here we have a screenshot. Obviously, I've blurred some of the information on one of the websites that we have. And it's very important to understand the user journey and how the user interacts with our app. And that makes us understand, allows us to understand if what we're doing is correct or if there are places that we should improve upon. For example, if the user gets onto the website and leaves, indicate that something is wrong. Maybe it's loading too slowly, or maybe it's very confusing for them to find what they need. And by doing so, by obviously getting the data you need with tools like Google Tags, where Google Tag Manager, where you can you can extract the specific data that you need from the website up to an extent that I can't even explain. Like it could be if I want to track if the user stays up more than 3 minutes on the 50% section of my website, that sort of data. The choices are limitless here, and you can get that, communicate that with the marketing team, and create better campaigns, better landing pages, better user experiences, and at the end of the day, increase the results on the business metrics. But obviously, every business differs, and not every metric is necessarily important for a business. If you have, as Angelo said, if you're a bank, you want to have lifelong customers. You want to make sure people use your app, I don't know, forever, if you could. But there are other apps that they don't care about that. Maybe it's a startup that has created this revolutionary product, a physical product that you just go on a landing page, buy once, and that's it. So it's important to find the right metrics for your business. So, for example, that would be if you're trying to bring business, if you're trying to bring new people to your business, that would be something like CAC, like customer acquisition cost, one metric that you could consider. But if you're trying to retain users, you could use a metric like customer retention cost to see how much does it cost to keep that user in your app. Now, moving on into becoming a great UI UX designer. And there is a lot of paths you can take to become one. As I said at the beginning of this webinar, my plan was to study computer science and develop video games. That was my dream as a kid. But now what I do instead is create great user experiences, customer experiences, and have people interact with products and make some and have impactful products for people to use and love using over and over again. So there's a few things you need to keep in mind if you want to start. If you, after this webinar, there's maybe one of you that'd be great wants to take the UI UX career path. I'd love to see that. The one thing you should keep in mind throughout the whole journey is that the user should be in the center. You are creating value for users and businesses, as I said earlier, but businesses are not going to be interacting with the platform. It's going to be users who are going to be interacting with your platform. So you need to make sure that platform is valuable for the user. You need to make sure that they are happy to use your application, your platform. They love it. They share it with their friends. And you're creating an experience that's going to have an impact on them, and it's going to at the end drive results to your business, because everything at the end is business. So you're going to need that. But it's not all it's not all fun and games. You need to prepare yourself for quite the digging. There's a lot of digging inside UX. It's not only designing stuff, as I said a million times before. It's about designing the right stuff for the right people. So you need to find the right people. You need to understand your audience. You need to understand who are you building the app for, and how are you going to build the app for them. What structure are you going to use? How are you going to engage people? How are you going to keep you using your app over and over again? And you need to be communicating that data with a lot of people, as we're going to see later on. And if you want to get started, there's great tools out there that change all the time. Right now, one of the main tools I use is Figma myself, which is an amazing tool to create the first drafts. Whether that would be for user experience, where, as I said earlier, the low fidelity mockups, where I don't have examples here. I usually keep paper stacked with designs that I draw. I usually have my pen. The first thing I do before getting into a computer, would be drawing something on a piece of paper and see how that looks, and then translate it into an app. You have Adobe XD, which unfortunately it's not being continued. So it's not it used to be a business standard, but people shifted to Figma, which is honestly a better app. And although it may seem boring at the end, people may start just, okay, let me just design stuff. I want to create an app. It's important to do that step, because at the long run, it's gonna decrease cost by a great amount of number. Because imagine creating something that is beautiful, it's appealing, as we said earlier, but it's not driving results. You have to go back to the drawing board. So that's why you need to create the first steps need to be important before you start designing stuff. So, as I said, the UI designers are not graphic designers by any means. You can become a UI designer by getting a degree in graphic designing, but those two are not equal. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have design skills. You should be able to design stuff. You should be able to create aesthetic looking platforms, and people would love to use them. But what's important here, and what differentiates them from graphic designers, is you need to make sure those designs are not just aesthetic, but they have impact in the user. There's no point in having a beautiful button that no one uses, unless it's a graphic on an Instagram post or story. I love being a UX because there's a lot of communication with many people, whether that would be stakeholders or product managers or developers. Think yourself as a bridge. So you would be communicating the needs of the users, maybe directly through them, if you're an agency, for example, if you start on your own, or maybe through a product manager if you're part of a company. And then communicate those needs into the designs, which you need to later communicate them with the developers. And that's one other important thing that you need to keep in mind. You shouldn't be a developer. I think that's a good plus for me that I have a computer science background, but at least you should be able to know if your designs are feasible. So that means that you should have some basic knowledge of front-end stack, whether that would be JavaScript, HTML, CSS, because at the end of the day, it's going to be developers who are going to be translating your designs into actual working products. And trust me, the last thing they need is an amazing looking app that no one in your team can develop, maybe because people in your team are not seniors, for example, or maybe you don't have 100 people developing apps, you only have 2. So in the amount of time that you have to develop a project, it's not feasible. So you need to have empathy towards the users who are going to use the app, but also towards the developers who are going to be struggling to develop your amazing imagination that you may have. And now, as with a lot of things, it's not something you study and that's it, for life. Things in the UI and UX world change all the time. And that's why you need to be adaptable. Trends, if you look at trends, you have different trends every single year. A few years ago, we had, for example, glass morphism with Apple, with everything being glass, and was one of the advocates. I loved using that type of design. But now you have different things popping up every year, every now and then in the UI and UX world. So you need to be staying on top of trends, either through articles. Figma has great blogs for that, or maybe websites like awards, where you have award-winning websites where you can see how amazing UI and UX can have on building digital products. Then you need to be able to commit to lifelong learning, and that comes in all sorts of ways, whether that would be self-learning, bootcamps, courses, or getting a master's degree in, I don't know, user experience or interacting media. If you want to take your career to the next level, you may start looking into those options and improve yourself upon both the user experience and your user design, user interface. And at the end, always stay curious, always dig for more. Not just maybe sometimes you want to be the advocate of something new. Maybe instead of looking at the trends, you want to be the one who you're going to be the trend center. If you want to be the trend setter, you want to be out there, out in the world, be excited with what you create, engage with people, learn new things every day, and always stay up to date. So with that being said, I think that brings us to the end of this webinar. And I hope at the end, now obviously we're going to have a Q&A where you can feel free to ask, either open your mics or leave in the chat any questions that you may have. But at the end, I hope you have understood at least the fundamentals of a UI UX designer, how it works, how it can be used with digital marketing, like Angelos discussed, and how those things can be combined to create a holistic experience for users and businesses that impact people and bring revenue to businesses and business owners. So thank you very much, everyone, for having us today.
Okay, Iraklis and Angelos, thank you very, very much. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. I really love the way you explained us the difference between the UI and the UX through examples like Rolls-Royce or iPhones and the applications. And before we officially wrap up, allow me to say that your presentation was both engaging and informative, and I really appreciate the expertise you shared with us. And I'm saying that because I was also one of those who confused the UI with the UX, and with your examples, you helped me to understand the difference and why they are so important for businesses. Like Iraklis said, it's, at the end of the day, it's always business. You highlighted the importance of the design in building successful products, but you also gave us a clear understanding of how design and technology merge in order to create seamless user experiences. At least that's what I get. And as we come to the end of today's webinar, and before we move to the Q&A session, sorry, I would like to ask you, both of you, a few questions. First of all, you mentioned the personalization on products, and you referred to Spotify and customized playlists. I would like to ask, how do you think it's possible for a small enterprise or an SME to achieve this goal? Should the company seek expertise from a professional like you or someone else, probably?
I can answer this question for sure because it's more business oriented. I mean, depends. I think SMEs actually do it better than big corporations. If you ask me, I have seen more creativity on this department by a startup or an innovative tool that comes out than a big corporation, because usually it needs more of, approvals. And usually customizability is very tough to get when you get a lot of approvals because it goes over a long period of time. In my opinion, for an SME to understand better and customize products tailored to users, yeah, they can contact with a business professional like us or interact with us for sure. But a more resourceful sort of way to do so is by understanding the data of the customer. That I think when it comes down to anything that circulates around user experience or UX, understanding what you're building for can basically, and don't get me on a bad way of saying this, pseudo customize something, right? Even changing or allowing the user to change colors or create an avatar or even have a self-assessment tool that changes slightly different personas through an app or an application can make him feel like he is sandboxing. Sandboxing is when you create an environment. So basically create an environment that she's interacting or she's interacting with. But on the back end of things, like technology-wise, you have created the scenarios in the beginning, so he's not really customizing that much. So that's some of ways of you allowing users to interact with assets that you build, and you lock them in different scenario planning. Then you create a path or like an interactive way to basically pseudo orient that you customize something for your user, but in the back end of things, it's not 100% customizable. You have just 10 different processes that wait online that to cast the 10 or 20 different personas that you expect. And the better data you have on your user, or the better you know your user, or the more experienced you are on your user, the more customizability you can add without friction or problems for the other users, if that makes sense.
It's important here. Sorry. One thing that I should mention, although personalization is key on many apps, as UX designers, you have a responsibility, and one of those things is to be able to respect the privacy of people, of data, and that means not only creating an intuitive app that you can personalize it, but also make it easy for the user to opt out any of those personalizations if they don't want to. Because maybe they don't want to track. Amazon, for example, does a great, as Angelo said, where they have this personalized tracking cart. When I was in Dublin, in Ireland, it worked fantastic at what products it was showing. But I want, as a user, I want to have the ability, even if I don't want to, I want to know that I have the ability to be able to opt out of any personalization. So as a UX designer, I need to be able to create that path for the user and not just be greedy and hide those settings somewhere on the website and make it hard for the user to reach in order to leverage the data and benefit my business.
Okay, so it's all about business, but it's all about users as well, right? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Two more questions from our chat room. I think Iraklis answered the first one, so we have two more questions you can answer in a few words, please. How do you decide which metrics are the most important to track for your product's performance? And let me ask the second one too. And The second question, could you share some basic strategies for improving user engagement on a website?
Okay, I will answer the first one because it's product oriented, and then Heracles, who's a master class on his own on creating websites and indeed engages, will answer the second one. There's a lot of metrics, and I think that goes to Panagiotis' question from earlier. I saw when you posted it, there is a lot of metrics, right, that you can actually understand if that creates value, and if value, how much. There's 10, I would say 10, but there's like 3 pillars, right? The first one is CLV, customer lifetime value, right? Well, you get someone in, you pay something on a marketing campaign or whatever, and then you have to understand how much customer lifetime value I'm getting out of this person. Like, is he staying with me for 12 months? So do I have a business model that goes monthly based or year based? And you add that revenue, and you understand basically that a well-designed user experience that leads the user to sign up, buy a purchase, or buy a t-shirt is sort of creating a lifetime revenue system for your brand or product or whatever you're doing, right? So for example, to give you an example, that marketing ad I said about Apple created 10 times its cost per day for the first year for the Apple brand. So every day it was multiplying the revenue they paid for the marketing for 365 days. And obviously that stays forever with the brand, because this user buy a phone and buy a phone again and again and again. But if you can multiply marketing campaigns like that, or user experiences like that, just with a small tweak or a marketing trick, I think that's a huge metric to track. A second one that's also very, very important, especially in a startup world, we always ask that as investors: customer acquisition cost. CAC, as we say, CAC. How much does it cost for a user to come in before it's given or she even interacts, right? That's marketing campaigns, that's user designers, that's brainstorming session, that's blackboards, all the meeting hours and all the drafts and all the A/B testing that directly said that you put into a process before you go out there and you said to the user, hey, come land in my page. All that sort of cost add up, divided by the users per sort of feature or campaign that you're running, has to be at some point measured or tracked. Otherwise, you can create something very, very intuitive, but very, very expensive. Churn rate is also a very important metric, in my opinion. So the 3 are CAC, CLV, and churn rate, in my opinion. Churn rate is how easily a user is getting bored. And I saw that in a blog post on Reddit. Sorry for putting that here. Reddit is not the best corporation ever to discuss on business meetings. But hey, Reddit is basically saying that they have the lowest sort of churn rate for any of the users. Like, when someone is coming into Reddit as a platform, he stays for 10, 15, 20 years. It's harder for people to go in, but the user experience and how they tailor the product in the platform is probably one of the best out there. Now, some other metrics you can measure again is customer satisfaction scores, CSATs, we call them. Usually that this is newsletters or review buttons that you add in the platforms in the end, and you put review systems, and then you basically understand, hey, was this feature helpful? Was this product helpful? Was our customer IT support helpful? And then the user basically interacts and scores, and you can also give them some sort of gifts or something to be more intuitive and get more data on this. Feature adoption rate, another huge one, especially for applications that are new to the market, when they want to promote more features. Getting out there is very, very important with a new feature, always improving. But if you add a CTA before and after, right? If you understand how much a user is spending on that feature you created, and then you put 16 or 30 or 50 or 100 hours per developer in a 10 developer team, that could cost you, I don't know, thousands of dollars for a user to spend 10 more 15 seconds on a non-paid transaction. That's very, very bloating for a business. And then I think the last few we can say about monthly active users. I think that's for platforms mostly. A lot of Power BI analytics sort of put that literally as a calculated method without you even thinking about it. That's why it's very, very important, especially for marketing products. So how many recurring users you have per day or per month is also understandable for how many resources you're going to put in the team. If I'm building an application for a bank and I don't know, I use my application on my phone 3 to 6 times per day, I need to have a good UX team behind it, a good marketing team behind it, no matter how the cost it is, because if it's bad, it stays bad forever. And I have a lot of users doing it. If I'm doing, I don't know, an investment innovation platform that has one call or one cohort per year, well, maybe UX is not as important to that. So you just don't have to have an in-house team. You can just outsource it. And then the final, in my opinion, is conversion rate optimization. How much people you're getting from the marketing or the social media app or the application, and you're turning them into actual users or products or whatever. If you add all these up, sorry if I was too tiring, all these metrics up, and you sort of put analytics and data behind it, and you start seeing month per day, you can see if marketing or product or UX is going up or down, or if it's too resourceful or too costly for a business to scale upon.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Angelos. So now you asked how can I increase engagement on a website, but I'm gonna
Right,
take it
exactly.
a step further and talk about the platforms in general, because UI UX is not just about creating websites. At the end of the day, anyone can create websites. The thing is creating platforms, and this is a product. Now, getting someone onto your website is one thing. We discussed earlier the above the fold, but with keeping that person engaged on your platform is a whole different story. So you need to think about a few things that you need to keep in mind. The first one, if we are talking about a very complicated platform, for example, you need to make sure that the navigation is as simple as possible. I want to get into a website, a platform, and navigate through, let's say, a dashboard without having to dig around myself because I wasn't explaining what to do. One thing you could do for that, for example, is have a very easy onboarding method, like great products do. For example, if you go on Trello for the first time, it may be a mess for someone that opens it up, but because of that, they have an onboarding session where they explain the steps that you need to take before you started building your boards on your Trello account. And so always map out. So onboarding would be one part. One other part you need to consider is mapping out your entire structure of the platform with the information architecture and the sitemap of the platform. So knowing what pages you're gonna have, how people are going to access those pages, either through links on the homepage, for example, or from the header section or from the footer. You need to make sure you map that correctly before you start designing stuff in order to make sure that the user can go from point A to point B seamlessly. And at this day and age, interacting with content, engaging with content is vital. So it's becoming more and more demanding, but you need to make sure that people are engaging your product. And one of the things we did as well on our platform, we wanted to make sure we showed it in one of our slides. We created canvases for people to interact. It was just business tools, very simple. But we took those tools that people can find that you can draw on a piece of paper, and we were like, okay, why do it on a piece of paper when you can do it directly on our platform and start using it? And people did that, and we also did some personalization techniques that are very minor, didn't have any impact on the on us, but on the user, being able to change the color, for example, on each section, it was very important. It kept them engaging, and that we had a great response from the users using those tools instead of having them on a piece of paper stacked up somewhere on the drawer. And at the very end, which is a combination of those things, is personalization. Again, Spotify is a great example. I wouldn't put Spotify on the top UI experiences, but when it comes to the UX aspect, they're doing a great job. And among all those things, being able to have your own personal playlist, for example, that you can listen on your own or share with your friends or mix with other songs that you find online, I think that adds a great it's a great thing to have on your platform, and it will drastically increase the engagement of the users, either on the short or long term, depends on what you want to get out of it. Now, I missed a question earlier. I'm not going to take long, but I missed a question earlier. I said I'm going to answer and I forgot about it completely. It was about what metrics you can use and how you can track those metrics, which is great because I explained them very greatly earlier. There are a few tools, obviously, but if you're just starting out, things you can use are Google Analytics, which they're relatively simple to start with, and they integrate with Google Tag Manager that I mentioned earlier. And that's one great way to start tracking data and how people interact with your website. One other thing you can use is Hotjar or like Microsoft Clarity, which provide real-time data. They capture the data of the user. You can see actually how the user interacts within the app. Google doesn't really do that, but apps like Hotjar and Microsoft Clarity, they actually record the screen of the user, the journey that they're taking to get into an end result. Obviously, that's with the consent of the user. That's very important. As I mentioned earlier, everything needs to be transparent. You're not getting data that you shouldn't be getting. You shouldn't be doing that at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. A heartfelt thank you to Iraklis and Angelos for sharing their valuable expertise, and of course, a big thank you to all of you for your active participation and through your questions. Allow me to say that the Hellenic Development Bank and Innovation Division were committed to supporting businesses through InnoAgora platform, not only with financial tools, but also with knowledge and collaboration opportunities like today's event. We look forward to welcome you to our next webinar or pitching session. We will continue to support innovation and growth within our ecosystem. Until then, thank you once again and see you at our next event. Angelos and Iraklis, thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you
for
very
having us.
much, guys. Thank you very much.
A good one. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.